To the U.S. Senator Hensel.
Well, thank you everyone on this rainy day, purple rain. But it was just, when I found out we could make this work and be here, I wanted to be here because I actually was last Saturday, went to one of the mosques in Minneapolis and got to spend a lot of time with Muslim leaders there. And I'm just so proud of how our state is taking this on. That is not happening everywhere in the country. In fact, we decided last week, I had up the steering committee for the Senate for the Democrats, and we're going to have a special meeting about this with Muslim leaders from across the country, because some of my colleagues have started asking me what we're doing and what's happening, and a few of them, like Republican Senator Jeff Flake from Arizona, went and visited a mosque, and just some of the things that are going on, so we can take some of the work we're doing, and we know we're not perfect, we have some of our own issues, but I can tell you it is more than's going on in a lot of other places to respond to what's happening. And I'm pleased that Kimberly Holmes is here, as well as Kevin Lindsay, our commissioner, right here. State Senator Sandy Pappas, always such a leader on human rights issue, and Deputy Mayor Kristen Beckman, my friend, who helped me when I first was running for office. Miriam Mohammed, thank you. I know everyone looks forward to hearing from you. Dr. Kennedy, thank you for being here as well. And also I'd like to thank the World Without Genocide and the St. Paul Department of Human Rights. Most of all, it's great to be here with people of so many different backgrounds, because one of the things we know about our state is that we may speak different languages, or we may worship in different ways, but one thing we know for sure is there's more that unites us than divides us. And I'm so proud to represent our state. As you know, we have the largest population of Somali and Liberian refugees, and the second largest population of Hmong refugees. And just so you know, this wasn't always the case about Minnesota. I've actually, one time gave a lecture at St. John's in St. Cloud for the McCarthy lecture. And so I did a bunch of research on the history of our state and immigration. And it was pretty fascinating, because when you go way back, we actually had a lot of isolationism as a political philosophy coming out of our state. And in fact, we had the congressman who said after World War II that Europe should paddle its own canoe. Have you ever heard that? That was our guy that said that. We also had one of only 2 U.S. senators, and the guy's name from Minnesota was Hendrik Shipstead, who voted against the UN Charter. The other guy was from North Dakota. And so we had that as a history. And then what happened, a lot of things happened at once, really led by our places of worship and churches that started doing missionary work all over the world. And that exposed our state and our culture to people. We started adopting kids from other countries. Our businesses became very international. And as you know, we're home to 17 Fortune 500 companies, but we started doing work around the world. So we had people who were workers and employees who started dealing with other parts of the world. And then with that, no surprise, we started electing people that had more of an international outlook. So McCarthy had worked on the St. Lawrence Seaway. That's how you get goods out of here. Humphrey and Mondale, of course, very focused on international issues. Rudy Boswich worked on the issue of the Ethiopian Jews. We had Bill Frenzel, the Republican congressman from the western suburb, who was really involved in the human rights issue. People like Don Fraser and Martin Savo, Jim Oberstar, who could speak Creole, go figure. We just had a lot more representatives that cared about the world around them, and still do with our current group. In fact, we were just talking about Cuba, and Representative Tom Emmer and I are leading the bills to lift the embargo on Cuba. So that tradition has continued. So I first got involved in some of these issues with the Muslim community right after 9/11. Tom Hemphill was a U.S. attorney at the time, He was a Bush appointee, and we worked really hard on this because, as you can imagine, some of the things that are being experienced in the community, it feels like deja vu, because for those of you around then, we were seeing that same kind of thing. And I was the Hennepin County attorney, and I still remember someone running into my office telling me that the police out in, I think it was Bloomington, it was in the western suburbs, had gotten a call that there was some Arab person that had set a big dumpster on fire and was trying to create a fire. This man had called it in, and the police were there, and guess what they found out? The guy that set the fire was the white guy that called it in because he wanted to get attention. And so obviously we charged him with a crime. But those were the kinds of things. That was a smaller example, but we were seeing desecration of mosques and different things, graffiti written on things, and people being threatened. And so we thought it was really important at that time, and that we reach out to the community. And we went around and visited with the community and visited mosques. And that was really the first time that I got involved. So I had an understanding of how bad this can be. But honestly, last weekend when I was there with CI, where are you, CI? It's works in my office. I've been here for a long time. Just got recently elected to the school board, and we're so proud of his work. But he set up a very good meeting for me last weekend. And one of the stories that I heard was of a family that had just gone out to eat at a restaurant. And they're just some young kids, and this guy walks by and just looks at him out of the blue and says, "You'll go home, go home." And the little girl looks at her mom and says, "How can we go home? We just came out to dinner. I don't want to eat dinner at home. We're eating out." And as sweet and funny as it is, you think of the innocence of that child, because she only thought of one home, and that was here. This was her home. So of all that happened during 9/11 and what we saw then in the backlash, this just feels more personal. And I think that's because the rhetoric we're hearing, whether it's on TV, whether it's from some of the candidates running nationally, is much worse and much more hateful. And I think that has made it a lot harder for people, because you've got people that have been here for a long, long time, maybe our second generation, now third generation, who are suddenly hearing things that they hadn't quite heard before, and that's why it's so important for everyone to respond together. So when I think about how to respond, I mean, the first thing is obvious: human dignity, and what we stand for, and why we are Americans, and what our country has stood for. We are a beacon of democracy and of fairness and of human rights. I also think about the economy. Sometimes I talk about that to people. One of my favorite statistics, this is from a few years back, but it was that of the Fortune 500 companies in America, 90 were formed by immigrants, 90 of them. 200 of the current Fortune 500 companies, nearly half, were formed by immigrants or kids of immigrants. And 30% of US Nobel laureates came from other countries, right? Think about that. So when you think of the greatness of our nation, and not only the principles of our nation as expressed in the Constitution, but the greatness of our economic power and our entrepreneurship, so much of it is about immigrants, and of course, as part of that, refugees. And so we fought those battles in the Senate. I was proud we passed the bipartisan immigration bill, and I was really proud of what happened this December. It didn't really get noticed, but obviously these attacks, the recent one in Brussels and the one that we saw in Paris, are horrific. These are evil terrorists. They must be brought to justice, and we all know that. But part of responding to this is not only being tough on terrorists and making sure we do everything to protect our country, but it's also making sure that we respond with strength by maintaining our quality of life. I remember when I used to be a prosecutor, I would always say that our mission was not just to put people in jail. Our mission was to convict the guilty, but protect the innocent. And protecting the innocent not only means protecting people from who might be wrongly accused of a crime, but it also means protecting them in their everyday lives and protecting them from this kind of undignified rhetoric that we're seeing. And so the thing I was proud about, which kind of went unnoticed in all of the noise in the presidential election, is that a nice way of saying it? Was that we stood up in the Senate to actually this effort to stop all Syrian refugees from coming in when we just hadn't had a lot of negative experiences with these refugees. They were so vetted, and this doesn't mean that there's not a problem from time to time, that is true. But for the most part, the vetting process with the refugees is much more intense than vetting of some of the other visas and other things. So we basically in the Senate stood up after a House bill passed and we said, no, this is wrong. We're going to figure out a better way to do this. We focused more on visas and some of the other things and did not make any significant changes to the refugee program. And that's why you still see at a much slower rate, by the way, than Canada, where the new Prime Minister there greeted the Syrian refugees at the airport. I think they've taken in 25,000 Syrian refugees, and we've only taken in a couple thousand. And the hope is to at least get 10,000 by the end of the year. But when you think of the size of our countries, it is not where we should be when we look at how we've taken in other refugees in the past. And again, I think some of this gets at how people are reacting to the rhetoric that they hear. And we just have to keep strong. And a lot of this is people coming together like you are today. And I'll just end with this. One of my worst parts of this long year of politics has been when someone actually on a national stage said that no Muslim should ever run for president. And I thought to myself, okay, it is true, we have never had a Muslim president, we've never had anyone seriously running for president. That's Muslim on a major party ticket, but we've also never had a Jewish president, right? We've never had a woman president, but no one tells a little child in the United States of America that they can't grow up to be president. That's not what our country's about. So I truly appreciate everyone that's come together here from different faiths and different backgrounds and walks of life to really celebrate our state and how we are taking this on. And I can tell you from that article I read last weekend about some of the lectures going on in more rural parts of our state that maybe we just shouldn't be meeting here. I think that the answer is, especially with some of our churches and such, to kind of take this on the road and figure out a little hour-long thing that can be put on in exactly those same communities that heard the other rhetoric and heard someone coming up and saying things that wasn't true. I was really stunned by that. So I think I'm hoping the state and the commissioner will target those towns where that happened, no matter how small they are, and just bring a group of people, including people from the Christian community and others, just to talk about this effort. I think that's going to be just as important as doing this today, and I hope you'll take ideas from that video and other talks, and I know Siad, we would love to help in any way from our office, and if I can be available, I'd love to be part of it. And so we will go from there. So thank you and have a great day today, and stay safe.
Somos un Minnesota.
Bella ilulla Minnesota.
Fenna tulipantu om.
احنا واحد بمينيسوتا.
I lived in a children's home in Germany after the war, mostly orphans and other people displaced by World War II. And one of my great joys was playing in bombed-out buildings, playing hide-and-go-seek with other kids at the home. But perhaps my fondest memory was being taken in by a family in Holland that were charged with, I guess, fattening me up and before I started first grade.
Growing up, when I was younger, when I was going to school, walking, enjoying, the afternoons playing soccer with my friends on the street, and enjoying life without knowing the complications of life.
Every moment was a very special memory to me. Growing up in a refugee camp, I realized that every moment I lived in that refugee camp there was some new excitement and some new memory. that I carried with me from my childhood. I was born with 5 sisters and 3 brothers. I'm number 8 in the family. We shared food, we shared happiness, we shared compassion, as much as we were poor when it comes to money, but we were very rich when it comes to love and compassion.
Every evening we eat together, we eat supper together, and we never miss that supper together. That's really important, and I never get back to that time at all. It's just that in the past that I miss a lot.
We are one Minnesota.
At this time, I would like to invite the Deputy Mayor of the City of St. Paul, Kristen Beckman, to extend a special welcome to all of you and our sponsoring organizations.
Hi, I'm Kristen. I'm the Deputy Mayor here in the City of St. Paul, which means part of my job is going around and just telling everyone how much I love our city. I am so proud of St. Paul for so many things. One of the things I'm most proud of, and particularly recently, is I came to understand that over half of the recent immigrants and refugees that come into the state settle in St. Paul and Ramsey County. And that makes me fiercely proud for a number of reasons. One, that we have affordable housing and transit and services and places for people to live and go to school and have great jobs and a future. But more because it says to me, we've created a community that is welcoming and opening, whether it is from Governor Mark Dayton and Lieutenant Governor Tina Smith, who are such amazing leaders on this, to Senator Klobuchar and our other federal partners who are so clear in their message about welcoming and making a space for people in our community, to Mayor Coleman and our city council leaders, particularly Councilmember Dai-Tao, who are so fierce in their refusal to allow discrimination and hate to take place in our city, and how determined we are to make sure that everyone feels like St. Paul is a place where they could bring their families and thrive. You know, my family celebrates Passover, and so for the last 2 nights we were at Seder dinners, and it was just this great time of coming together, but also remembering what it was for Israelites to be slaves and to seek refuge and leave a country. And on Friday with Hero, we have a Holocaust remembrance ceremony. And so I've been thinking about that, sort of bookending my week of Seder and remembering the Holocaust. And it makes me think about what happens when communities aren't welcoming, when we see genocide happening across the ocean and we don't open up our gates and our doors and our homes and our cities. And so it just makes me even more proud of what we are creating together. And I really appreciate all of you being here today and helping us stand in the City of St. Paul with our great Human Rights Department and all of our partners here in the city to make sure it is very clear that hate and discrimination are not welcome here. We are a place that is open to everyone, and we appreciate all that is brought to our city through the immigrants and refugees that come here. And so thanks for being a part of today.
Senator Al Franken unfortunately was not able to be with us today. However, he did send a letter, and I'm going to read his thoughts. Dear friends, thank you for the invitation to attend today's We Are One Minnesota, Standing United and Celebrating Community event. I regret that I'm unable to attend today's festivities, but wanted to pass on my best wishes and praise for the event. Minnesota has a proud tradition of welcoming more refugees in our state than almost anywhere else in America. And events like today's are important in reminding us all of the benefits to our state of refugees, immigrants, and diversity. Unfortunately, we've heard a lot of hateful, bigoted rhetoric about Muslim Americans recently in the news and across the nation. Some have ludicrously even called for banning all Muslims from entering our country. We can and must change the discourse, and that starts in local communities and with events like We Are One Minnesota. I am glad we are taking steps in Minnesota to combat Islamophobia and embrace diversity, and I hope that our state can serve as an example for the rest of the nation. Best wishes to come on the celebration of our state's diversity and the work to go forward as one Minnesota. Sincerely, Al Franken. And it's such touching words to hear that. As for the last 2 nights, I too have been celebrating Passover, and last night was surrounded by 2 Holocaust survivors who shared their stories of what it was like to come to the United States and to be here, and a constant reminder that people are coming here for many different reasons, and we need to be there to support one another. At this time, I would like to invite up our next speaker, Governor Dayton's General Counsel and Deputy Chief of Staff, Kimberly Holmes.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone is doing fine today. Well, on behalf of Governor Mark Dayton and Lieutenant Governor Tina Smith, I'm here for this wonderful organization, this wonderful day, this wonderful cause, and I wanted to welcome everyone today. The mission of this day and the organizations that are involved is truly commendable. Governor Mark Dayton sends the message that all people are welcomed in Minnesota and that we all stand as brothers and sisters in welcoming others and supporting all people from all walks of life. And I was told that I'm supposed to say this is for Governor Mark Dayton. If you didn't get a chance to see his State of the State, this is something that he said, and I'm going to quote him directly. He put, first of all, he said he placed a large emphasis on the principles that Minnesota is for everyone, for people of all races. And he specifically quoted in the State of the State, let's see, maybe I didn't bring it, I got it, I'm sorry. He specifically said in the State of the State that he wants all legislators to assist him in helping to make equality for all. As you know, he's pushing the big budget item to help try to address racial inequality and to bring everyone together. So that is one of his main principles. And one of the things he's also pushing is, I don't know if you had a chance to see his State of the State. He and Lieutenant Governor, they visited an area where there was Islamic, it was a terrible, that they went into the mosque, and he said that that was a horrible experience, and he has to try to bring diversity into the organization. He wants to know there's 2 things that we're working on for the state. First of all, we have hired a state recruiter her job is to help hire individuals into higher management positions. And her name is Anika Ward, and I was told I could drop her name. What her position is, she's recruiting to increase she's recruiting management from all walks of life. We want the state to look like the world. The governor wants to increase diversity of everyone. And that's the first thing. She's been doing a good job. She's really been bringing individuals in. And so I have permission to do this. Anika Ward, she's with Minnesota Management and Budget, and she can be contacted there. If you know of anyone who wants to come into a higher management position in state government, do that. Another person that we're bringing on a statewide diversity and inclusion officer, and his role is to help increase diversity and inclusion in all the state agencies of the whole enterprise, and he'll be starting with us soon. So those are the things that we've taken steps to try to help increase diversity in state government. And we're open. If you have ideas, you can actually contact me. I'm the Deputy Chief of Staff and the Governor's General Counsel, and we are working to bring about diversity in state organizations, because we figure if we can do it in the state enterprise, then hopefully the corporate America, we can set an example for them and they could follow us. So that's what I'd like to say, and I'd like to welcome everyone, and thank you for having me.
much, Ms. Holmes. Today's event is filled with speakers and stories from people who have come here, but it's also to introduce you to different cultures. And I'm really thrilled to invite the St. Catherine East Asian Student Association dance group to come up for a performance this afternoon.
Ikalah indah hari sungai dari dia, kini bermain nanti nanti sambil salam, oh sambil main dia, kami menyusun satu jari. Orang yang indah akan diterima, salam baca oh yang cinta. Baralah mana hai kurnya hari, alam di gunung katakan, baralah mana rusuknya hati, orang sekampung takkan ayu. Apabila jawi sinyal kata, punya pada ibu mendongak-dongak, pilih di pagi. Saban salina, suka di pagi onde makan dia. Dinding dinding, ay dinding dinding, dinding dinding, ay dinding dinding. Baralah tinggi, ay tabangnya bangau, pakai Melayu kayu ay baralah mana jauh merantau, budaya kita kemana? Udah di sana, saka-saka, jalan-jalan onde kita berangkat, andikan raja. Ding, 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 ding,
you so much for sharing that with all of us. As a longtime member and former chair of the Higher Education Budget and Policy Committee, Senator Sandy Pappas has championed numerous efforts to ensure the exceptional quality of Minnesota's institution and affordable access to its colleges and universities. She has carried a number of initiatives which would allow all graduates of Minnesota high schools, including the children of undocumented immigrants, to attend Minnesota's colleges and universities at in-state tuition rates. She has increased funding for first-generation college students, increased child care grants, and college access programs. Please welcome Senator Sandy Pappas.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, and welcome to We Are One Minnesota. What a great phrase that is. As many of you know, our state has come a long way in the last decade. We have light rail transit, which I hope some of you took today. We've made great strides in tackling homelessness, unemployment, and obesity. We now provide free kindergarten all day and more preschool programs, and we've even made marriage equality the law of the land. These policies have led the publication Politico to recognize Minnesota as the best state in the union. But we can do better. As our state continues to progress, the values of tolerance, diversity, and inclusion remain key pillars of what makes Minnesota the great and unique state that it has become. And for those of you who don't know, Minnesota Nice is not just a catchy phrase, it also truly encompasses our way of life, certainly our way of life that we aspire to. Everyone is welcome here in Minnesota. With the notable exception of our Native American Minnesotans, we all come from immigrant or refugee families. My grandfather came here from Kalamata, Greece when he was 15 to avoid another conflict with Turks. His father didn't want him to be drafted to that war. My husband's family were Jews from the Ukraine and Germany who fortunately came to the US before World War II but lost many relatives. Our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents faced the same struggles that immigrant families face today. So as established Minnesotan, we understand, and we should understand, that discrimination, prejudice, and hate speech of any kind should have no place in Minnesota, nor should it in any state in America. I'm really thankful that Minnesota has leaders like Governor Mark Dayton and Lieutenant Governor Tina Smith, Senators Klobuchar and Franken, Mayor Coleman, and Human Rights Commissioner Kevin Lindsay, who will be speaking right after me. All of them have sent clear messages that bigotry will not be tolerated in our state. The governor in particular has asked state employees to limit their travel to states that have discriminatory state laws. These significant actions help remind us of why Minnesota is such a beautiful and vibrant place to live. It has been Minnesota's overwhelming privilege and legacy to welcome immigrants from around the world and attempt to provide them with the resources and opportunities they need to flourish in our communities. As the late U.S. Senator Paul Wellstone once said, "We all do better when we all do better." In closing, as we hear and see more and more hate speech being spewed across national headlines, more violence against minority groups in our country and around the world, and more discriminatory legislation being proposed and even adopted in various states, it's time for us as people and as Minnesotans to reaffirm our solidarity with all members of our diverse Minnesota communities. And that's why we're here today. And as an earlier speaker said, we need to continue this around the state of Minnesota. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Pappas. Our next guest, Commissioner of Minnesota Department of Human Rights, is responsible for a department whose mission is to make Minnesota discrimination-free. The Department of Human Rights enforces the Minnesota Human Rights Act, which prohibits discrimination based on race, gender, religion, color, creed, nationality, age, disability, sexual orientation, and other characteristics protected under this act. He was described by Governor Dayton as a respected lawyer and advocate with deep experience in the community, working on issues of fairness in the workplace and the community. Please welcome Commissioner Kevin Lindsay.
fantastic event. Before I get started my prepared remarks, let us give thanks to our Mistress of Ceremonies here, Jessie. I want to touch upon a few things which have been said here earlier today, and that is that as a country sometimes we struggle. I thought Senator Klobuchar did an excellent job talking about some of that struggle even within the state of Minnesota, talking about some senators in the past talking about maybe Europe should go it alone, they should figure it out by themselves. Sometimes it's important for us to remember that history about where we all come from. Outside of Native Americans, all of us came to this country. And it's important for us to step back and then recognize the great contributions that all of us have made in making this country stronger and better. But that also is a commitment to also continue welcoming newcomers to our country and to recognize that our country becomes stronger as we create more inclusive societies in every part of our city, of our county, our state, and of our country. And that's really what I'm thinking we are all Minnesotans about. Minnesota has much to be proud of as being a leader in creating an inclusive society and an inclusive part in our country. The State of the State address, the General Counsel mentioned Governor Dayton talking about inclusivity. I had the good fortune of sitting next to a young woman who had been hit by a beer bottle in a restaurant. And she had been hit by this beer bottle because the person thought that she was speaking a foreign language and didn't appreciate the fact that she was speaking a foreign language. The governor asked her to stand up, and in that State of the State, both parties, every spot in the state, everyone in the audience stood up, applauded, and recognized, and said that that's unacceptable in the state of Minnesota. There was no partisanship at that moment in time. So I really appreciate events like this and knocking down those sometimes partisanship walls that separate us to come back to those fundamental concepts which unite us all. Earlier this year, we had a conversation with Congressman Emmer and then Congressman Ellison. Both are part of the Somali caucus. And they asked us to start to think about and how to plan to have community conversations going across the state. So I really appreciated Senator Klobuchar's offer for assistance from her office. And we're beginning that process now to work with nonprofit organizations and other community organizations around the state to have these heart-to-heart, one-on-one conversations. And I know that they will be difficult, and I know that they will be tough. Just as Senator Pappas mentioned earlier about same-sex marriage and that difficult conversation that we had in our state, or the conversation about photo ID, both of those initiatives were defeated in the state of Minnesota. When you look across the country, it's hard to imagine any other state accomplishing that. I want to give that to you to say, even though this journey of this conversation might be difficult, going out and having that conversation, please hearken back that there has been recent success in actually meeting your neighbor face to face and having that conversation about creating a more inclusive state. Just like we were successful on those two initiatives, I think we'll be successful in this initiative. The governor is exactly right with his initiative on diversity and inclusion. Inclusion is going to make us stronger. It'll continue to make us that true North Star of the United States. So thank you very much for spreading the word of We Are All Minnesota. Thank you.
I am really excited about our next performance, a Uganda traditional dance, featuring one of our features in the videos. And especially as we were putting this program together and we were trying to determine what sort of things did we want to make sure were included to share different cultures, We talked about including this dance performance, and some of us volunteered. We'll come up on the stage with you, Rio. We can certainly do this. She looked at us, laughed, showed us a video. We said no, and when you see it, you will understand. But please join me in welcoming her up on the stage for this wonderful performance.
Yeah.
wonderful job. Not something I would have picked up in about 3 weeks. Our keynote speaker today is a true champion of justice and equity, a human rights advocate and consultant to numerous nonprofits and governmental agencies. She's been a visionary leader in creative and innovative programs that have improved the lives of some of our most in-need residents. From early education issues to improved engagement with our local immigrant communities, she has been instrumental in building consensus and cooperative relationships among communities, government agencies, nonprofits, and corporate stakeholders. Our keynote speaker is currently a contract consultant at UCare Health Plan, where she works to reduce health disparities among East African refugees and immigrants. In recent years, she has held positions at Minnesota's Department of Human Services, the McKnight Foundation, and the Somali Parent-Teacher Association, where she worked on behalf of Somali children and families. As you can probably expect, she is very active in her community and serves on several advisory boards, including Governor Mark Dayton's Early Learning Council, and is on the board of directors of World Without Genocide at Mitchell Hamlin Law School. She holds Master's of Science degrees in statistics from Fresno State and sampling of multivariate analysis from the State University of New York, Syracuse. Lastly, and maybe most importantly, she is also a warm, funny, and proud mother of 3 children with her husband, Ali Ghalid, the former Prime Minister of Somalia. Please join me in welcoming today's keynote speaker, Miriam Mohammed.
Well, this is the first time you will see someone who speaks an accent, and then I'm the true immigrant. The rest of the people were talking about so many people who came here as immigrants, but I'm the true immigrant. And for those of you who may have difficulties with my accent, you can stop me. I don't want to talk about how great Minnesota is or how everybody has been talking about that. I really like to share stories. 2 stories. One is my experience as an immigrant in America. And the second story is the experience of a refugee woman and her children coming to Minnesota. And the reason I want to share with you, I want to inspire those who already are there helping new immigrants to hear my story. And for those who didn't have a chance yet to help either refugees or immigrants, to think about helping them. My first story is my journey to the US. I came to the US July 4th, 1984, as a student. I landed JFK. I lost control of time because in America, 5 p.m., in our country 5, we call it 1, 2, 3, 5, so it's 11. I missed my flight. As I was sitting 3 hours waiting to hear, I had this sheet that was given to me by the people who gave me the scholarship. And it says, you go to JFK, you take a flight from JFK to San Francisco, California, and from there you take a Greyhound bus to University of Davis, California. That's all I had. I didn't know the difference of New York and San Francisco or UC Davis. As I missed my flight, a man with 2 beautiful children, his wife, and his mother-in-law came next to me. The mother-in-law really liked my dress. And they said, you look like an Ethiopian. We came and visited Israel and we just came back. And there are people who look like you who are Jews. And I said to him, I didn't know the word Jew. So I said to him, no, I'm Somali. So he looked at my itinerary and he realized I have missed my flight. And he said, you cannot, when he asked me where I was going, he said, you cannot take a Greyhound bus at 1 a.m. from San Francisco to UC Davis. To make the story short, his name is Martin Martin Weinstein, he took me to San Jose, and that's their final destination. I stayed with them 2 days to rest, and Martin drove me to UC Davis, California. He made sure that I have a place to stay, that I connected with the right people at the university, that I am safe, because I did not speak English very well. My English was very, very limited, and especially I did not understand American accent. How they were moving and talking so fast. I didn't understand one word they were saying unless they lied to me. So I looked at Martin and I have realized, is this me? How lucky I am to find this angel family to really welcome me to the US. I called my family and I told my father about this man. And he said, well, we didn't know anything about America. They're wonderful people, because I come from Somalia, where if you have someone new to your country, you take them in. You provide everything to them. And I felt it's the same in America. So as I finished my stay, and Martin became my good friend, like a father to me, I ended up finding my husband and going to the second phase of my life. I married my husband in New England, Cambridge. And after I got married, I couldn't find a job. After 2 months, I walked to the closest university. I didn't know what Harvard meant to many people. For me, it was a university with big buildings, like any other university in California. I walked into the university, and at Harvard, this is 1988, they had booklets that describe the different departments and the professors and what they do. I looked around, found this professor who works in maize and rice, and that's something I knew. I walked to his office. Of course, I could not speak English as I'm speaking to you today, but I could at least speak and ask his secretary that I wanted to see this professor. His name was Loris Bograd, and she really looked like I was crazy. But you see, I felt that everyone is Martin Weinstein, that this country, America, has all these wonderful people who welcome you as a new immigrant. Martin gave me that hope, gave me that foundation that I shouldn't be afraid of anyone, even though everybody looked different than me. So with that confidence, I really went to this office. So this man, Loris Bograd, was behind the desk of his secretary, and he walked out from his office and came out, and he said, "You came to see me?" And I said, "Yes." "Are you Loris Bograd?" He said, "Yes." "Let her in." I walked into his office, and he told me that he is an immigrant. He came to this country when he was 12 years old from Russia, and he's a Jew. At that time, I knew Jewish, but I did not know what Jew means. I didn't know the difference between Jew and Jewish. So I said, okay. I told him that I really want to work, that I just got married, I am pregnant, and nobody told me when you are pregnant, you will have morning sickness where you cannot see your husband. Sometimes you don't like him, and I don't know where else to go. And I said, nobody told me, and I don't have any family member, I don't know anyone. That's why I came to your office. Loris Bograd gave me a job at his lab as a lab technician. I went back to my husband and I said to him, I have a job. And he said, where? I said, Harvard. He said, what? Harvard? And I said, why everybody thinks Harvard is something else? What's Harvard? And he told me it's a prestigious school. I said, really? As an immigrant, I didn't know. So I got a job, and Loris Bograd became my mentor. He was there for me. His wife was there for me when I had my first child. They were my family. And to me, I still really believe that America is a country where everyone who is an American is so helpful and so nice as Martin Weinstein and Loris Bograd. As I had my first child and my child was premature, I came home without my child. I didn't have my family. I didn't know any Somali at the time in Cambridge, except me and my husband. And at that time, my husband found a teaching job full-time at Syracuse University, Maxwell School, and we were about to move and sell our house. So as I was sitting in the living room and crying, my husband was not there, our realtor walks in, who's selling our house, and she saw me crying. She hugged me. And I told her about all the pain, that what is going on with me. I don't know what to do. How do I take care of a premature baby who's 2 pounds? What do I do? Why am I here? She held me and hugged me and was there for me. She cooked for me. She stayed with me till she sold our house, almost 2 months. You see, these are 3 different experiences I had in America. And that really, the only thing I could think was every American is so great and so good. And it cannot be. And when you have people who believe in you and who hold you like that, you don't want a disappointment. So they were my mentors. I wanted to do well in everything I do. And I wanted to help any American I can see in anywhere, in any walk of life. So that is my experience. And why am I sharing with you my story before I go to the refugee woman? Because I really think that this is a country that inspired me to love people who look different than me. This is a country that I know so many Americans like to help others like I was helped. And this is not a unique story for me. This is a story that many immigrants who were my friends share with me, the same story that I am sharing with you. So it's there. So for those of you who think that it doesn't matter to help someone because either you don't have time or you don't know them, you don't know what it means for someone who comes from another country and who don't know where to go. Just that piece of hug, that small gesture of laughter and that small gesture of telling them you are something will go far away as it did for me. So I hope that will inspire you to really think of someone who does not speak English as you do, looks different, for you to reach out to one individual, no matter where you are and where they are. My second story is way different. And I asked my sisters who came as refugees to help me with this. And I found a woman, I will not share her name, real name, I will call her Halima. And I can use Halima because my sister's name is Halima. So Halima lived in Mogadishu with 2 children, 2 girls and her husband. After 1991, Halima, her husband was killed in front of her. She was raped. She didn't know what to do. She didn't know who to share. And this was happening across the board, so she could not go out. The second round of crazy people who were doing this came in. And one of them, she said, one of the guys who were doing all these bad things looked at her eyes and saw how fearful she was. He said to her, I'm not going to harm you. I will help you. He took Halima and her 2 girls and made sure they left the country. She went to a town called Kismayo, and finally she came to a refugee camp in Kenya. By then, Halima did not have relatives, and some of you may not know, but when the country collapsed, those people who came first, you have to have someone, your relative, in this country to sponsor you. Otherwise, you had no choice to come to the US. So Halima did not have anyone. During that time, the Lutheran Social Services, and I think the Catholic Charities, groups like I think Sandy Babas or someone mentioned that the church went to, our church groups went to Africa, did you mention, or places, or you mentioned, the commissioner. They went to Kenya and they saw the lives of these people. They decided to sponsor families, just like these families, where other families were being sponsored by their relatives who lived in the US. The Lutheran Social Services, the Catholic Charities decided to be those families. And some of you who always ask the question, why the Somalis came to Minnesota, you can ask the Lutherans and the Catholic churches why they're here. They are the ones who know. So Halima came here. I mean, I think they were given a place to stay. They were helped to find jobs. They were helped their daughters to go to school. Halima never talked about her rape. It was so painful. She never wanted to share with anyone. She would never share with her husband, with her doctor. Halima got a job as a housekeeper at a hotel. I will not mention. Her daughters worked hard, and they both became certified nurses in the Twin City. So Halima said this to me. You know, I left Somalia. I was terrified. My husband was killed. I was raped. I don't want to go back there. It's not getting better. Now hear what's happening, when I hear what's happening to the Muslims, when I hear that at work, when I go back to the hotel, that people tell me, you Muslims did what's happening in Belgium, you Muslims did what's happening in France, you are Al-Shabaab, you are an ISIS. Halima said, what do I do? This is my country. This is the place that gave me peace. This is the place that gave me life. I don't know where else to go. I'm terrified. So those people who probably will make comments about either Muslims or refugees or immigrants, they have no clue how much they're hurting women who were raped. Because Halima said, now I can't sleep. My fear is coming out. All the fear that she has suppressed is coming up now because she's so afraid that America will become like Somalia. And then she said, where do we go? So I want to remind you that we need to work so hard for those of us. I'm sure each one of you who is here today care about these issues. But we want to share with our neighbors, with our other people who may not agree with us, that this fear is real among the refugees. It's real with a group people like Muslims. When people make comments or statements, Islamophobia is real. For some people, what they say and what they do to the refugees, it's real for Halima. Halima is so scared that now she says, I have to see a doctor because I can't sleep at night. I cannot listen to the TV. I'm so afraid something bad will happen. And I don't know where to go. I don't know where to go with my daughters. So I hope we take this seriously. And as we started today about One Minnesota, that's, as I think some of the speakers talked about, we want to do this around Minnesota. I hope we will do it more often, and I hope we take this message to the community level in not-profit organizations, in mosques, in where these communities live, and it can be not only Muslims and Somalis, in Hmong community, in Latino community, all this community who feel like they don't belong here. For me, I really feel I belong here because that's where I got. I have the best friends I have in the world in America. I was welcomed, I was touched, and I feel like I have to give back what Martin Weinstein and Lawrence Bergrat has given me. I need to give back, and I want to extend my hand to people like Halima or to people who don't even look Somali, but they can be Latino, who are so afraid to come out because they're undocumented. So I hope we go out and do our work, and I thank you for listening to me. What else am I supposed to say, Ellen?
We're One Minnesota.
Somos un Minnesota.
بيا إلولا مينيسوتا
فينا تولي أون
احنا واحد بمينيسوتا.
Nobody can take that away from me. And it's all the good thing that's happened to us the good people that help us. I went to many states to tell you the truth. Minnesota people are more polite and more welcome you.
I'm here today in Minnesota because I believe the generosity of the people of Minnesota and my deep connection to the art, the music, the leadership is making me very proud to be here today. And I'm confident that the tiny ripples of hope that John F. Kennedy talked about still exist and very strong in Minnesota.
I'm convinced that if you work hard, are fortunate, have the good luck of finding friends and some people who will support you in that situation, Minnesota does permit you to follow your dreams. And the dreams may be realized not by the first generation, but by the second generation, the children of the original immigrants. There's no guarantee that the first generation will not have a lot of challenges and struggles.
To me, being a Minnesotan means staying true to my values, but also being open-minded to learn about other people's cultures. I would say also being Minnesotan to me means being hardworking, caring about others more than yourself. So doing something with your life that benefits others more than just yourself.
I have the fortune of being able to travel very often to my home country. And yes, at the beginning I'm happy to be there, to greet my people that I know. But I want to come back home. Even though the weather might be 70 below. Our roots now go deep, you know. My children were born here in Minnesota. And they are very proud to be in Minnesota too. They are bilingual. And they are proud to be bilingual. They can communicate in two languages. I love nature, and Minnesota is rich in that.
To me, being a Minnesotan means that I give everything I can for the state, and that I appreciate what's here for me. I wouldn't want to go. I'm really glad that our sponsor was from Minnesota, that has given my community, my family, an opportunity to thrive, to go to school, to contribute to this, the well-being, the arts and culture of this state, and I'm really proud of that.
Minnesota is my home sweet home. We are one Minnesota.
Thank you. I would like to thank again Marion for sharing her wonderful story with us this afternoon. Thank you again. I would like to thank Dr. Ellen Kennedy and her team from World Without Genocide for all their work. Axel, who let us talk him into sharing his story on his video that you've seen up on the screen, and the rest of the planning committee who are here today. I also want to thank all of our volunteers and sponsoring organizations, and I also want to thank all of you for being here and celebrating We Are One Minnesota. We couldn't do it without all of you. I encourage you to get involved with our many sponsors, World Without Genocide, Human Rights and Equal Economic Opportunity, and One Minnesota, who helped to create an open, welcoming, and inclusive Minnesota. All of the videos that you have seen here today will be available tomorrow on the city's website, stpaul.gov. I would encourage you to take a look at them. We'll have some additional information out there. And at this time, I would like to invite Dance Like Ballroom to help us close out the program before we go back and look at some of the exhibits.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for having us. We are professional ballroom dancers. Any Dancing with the Stars fans out there? You guys watch so you think you can dance? Okay. Well, Axel invited us because Axel and Lori they dance at our studio they're avid ballroom and lap dancers, so we like to perform you 3 numbers. First one is rumba. It is a dance from South America. By the way, I am Japanese and dancing a South American dance, so how's that combination, huh? And this is Lisa, so here we go with our rumba, our first number.
Just